Hello, I'm Carrie Dara, and welcome to the Grow Cedar Valley webinar series. And today we're going to be visiting with some professionals about physical and emotional wellness while working from home. And with me, my guests are Patrick Klein and Carly Miller from PDCM Insurance. And Patrick is the risk management consultant and also specializes in workplace safety and OSHA compliance. And then Carly is a wellness coordinator for PDCM and works with developing employee wellness programs for businesses across the Cedar Valley. So welcome both of you.
Hello.
Yep, thanks for being here. So Patrick, let's start with you. Just a few minutes about what you do and why you're realizing that this wellness and working remotely go so hand in hand. So go ahead, please.
Sure. So what I focus mostly on is safety and OSHA compliance. So that is obviously a pretty broad spectrum there of different topics and things like that. But one of the things we do is when we go into different businesses and offices, one of the things we talk about is working in an office type setting, which everybody's now working in an at-home type office setting, right? So everyone's adjusting to sitting on the sofa or sitting in a makeshift office or the kitchen table, wherever the case may be. So specifically when it comes to this, we talk about a good setup from like an ergonomics standpoint, where your comfort level at home is going to also make you a little more productive, a little more happy. Your body's going to react a little bit better. So while we normally do this in an office type setting, everybody's working from home. So everybody is in an office setting at home. So we talk a little bit about, proper setup, where your computer should be in relation. Obviously, we are all making makeshift stuff. So sometimes you get put books under your computer to raise it up to a more comfortable level, sitting in a chair. I know when I initially started, I was sitting at our kitchen table, which is kind of a high table. So I had kind of counter stool top chairs. And I realized after about a week of sitting there that my back was starting to hurt and I was leaning in and my feet weren't touching the ground. Kind of similar, minimal stuff like that. But I realized I need to get to a more comfortable spot because I probably wasn't being as productive as I could have been if I'd have been more comfortable working from home, things like that. So that's kind of what I focus on. And then obviously then all the other things that go along with OSHA and safety and things like that. But when we're specifically talking about working from home, a good work setup is key to being productive and feeling better about yourself while you're working from home.
Sure. Yeah, that emotional piece. And then we've talked about internally with our group about the isolation and the connectivity and making sure that there's a balance of both, especially the connectivity. So let's go ahead, Carla. Let's visit with you about what you've been working on with your clients.
Yeah, so as you kind of said, I help develop a variety of different employee wellness programs. And I think a lot of people jump to physical wellness as the first kind of target. But as we're kind of finding out with this whole working from home and quarantine situation, that the mental and emotional component is really coming into it. And so some of the things that we have been doing at PDCM have been trying to get our employees not only to focus on that mental side, but kind of address that physical side too. And so we have been doing one thing that I have been loving are these movement sessions. And so we all know that physical and mental health go hand in hand. So a lot of times by boosting your physical health, you have mental benefits with it. And so we do these 15-minute movement sessions every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2:00 every day. And it's kind of like this, a very interactive kind of live experience where we jump on at that time. And I just walk our employees through a quick 15-minute workout. And so whether that is yoga or more of like a high intensity style or some core work, whatever it is, just to kind of get people feeling more energized to continue throughout their day and to kind of boost your mood. I know I've had times where I've gone into leading those sessions and I've had kind of a draining morning and I don't really feel like doing it, but you're always happier after a workout. I don't think I've ever heard anybody finish working out and be in a worse mood than they started. And so obviously that physical component comes into it a lot. So encouraging people to get outside, especially now in Iowa, we're kind of starting to get into that spring season. I know our weather hasn't been the best, but encouraging people to really get outside and take walks. A lot of people are at home with their family. So if you can get the family involved, maybe all going for a walk over lunch and having pets, getting them outside to kind of wear them out so that they're not necessarily being super active and kind of interrupting your day as well, but just exposing yourself to some more movement when now we're kind of feeling a lot more sedentary. And then kind of with that, just having that natural light exposure. So if you are able to even work next to a window or have your office setting in a window, that can help a lot too. So getting outside, being a bit more active, those are some of the things that we've been doing at PDCM, and I've been implementing those with some other clients as well. And I think we're really finding that that's just a great break in the day too. So that's one thing that has been really helpful.
So are there examples of the kinds of workouts or the kinds of activities that you're encouraging either your employees or your clients' employees to do? I mean, some have more abilities and capabilities than others, but are there just some baseline exercises or movement opportunities that you provide?
Yeah, so a lot of times I'd say I do always try to provide modifications because, like you said, everybody is at kind of a different level and where they're starting. But we do a lot of like fast feet. So moving just like stepping really quickly and, some body weight squats just to kind of work that lower body a little bit more when you're, as opposed to sitting all day, lunges, things like that. Patrick can probably chime in here too, as far as a lot of stretching at the end, to make sure you're stretching out your wrists and your legs for sitting all the time and your hips and everything like that can get tight from sitting in that kind of seated position where maybe you're hunched over a little more, your wrists are getting tight from typing more, things like that.
Right. I know the first week, couple things. The first week when I was working from home, my dining room table is counter height. It's not the typical, it was trendy a few years ago, so that's what we have, of course. But my shoulders were just, not even 2 hours into my day, my shoulders were absolutely driving me crazy. So I went to the office and got my keyboard, and I put my keyboard in my lap, and just amazingly, just immediately, I did not have the shoulder pain and strain that I did. But the other thing was that I remember saying to my husband, with all of the people working remotely or working at home, somebody who has a business that can go in and make these offices like pop-up offices immediately, so people have the ergonomically correct ones and that they seem like they're a productive environment, would just be, it'd be a great business to have out there. And there's probably some out there, but I just didn't know who to call, but we figured it out.
Right. Well, and who's going into anybody else's houses right now anyway?
Right. That's a good point. So Patrick, what else do you want to add to what Carly was sharing with us?
Well, what she was saying is true. I mean, so one of the things we talk about when we go in and talk to office settings and working in an office, like we're working from home, is we always say we focus on 3 letters, and it's 3 B's, and one is blink, which seems like a really rudimentary, easy thing to do, right? But when you're focusing on your computer, like we all are now, because that's how we're conducting business, is you kind of, especially when you're concentrating, your body starts to automatically stop blinking a little bit, especially when you're focusing. So just blinking, kind of like you normally do, 12 to 15 times a second, or a minute, I should say. Kind of keeps your eyes, water keeps your eyes. This eye strain is a big deal, especially as we're all looking at screens more and more. And then obviously then breathe is another one. Another B is, and breathing is, again, seems pretty standard and pretty easy to understand, but breathing does relax your muscles. Like you were talking about the tense shoulders. If you just breathe normally, you're automatically relaxing a little bit while you do it. And then obviously the third B would then be breaks. And that could be as simple as just looking away from your screen for a little bit, being distracted, looking around the room, whatever the case may be. Just break in that concentration level, even for just a few seconds, obviously then relaxes your eyes a little bit, relaxes your body a little bit. And then obviously, like Carly said, getting up and moving is a big deal. I personally don't spend a ton of time in the office when I'm working my regular job. Usually I'm out visiting clients and conducting business that way. But when I am at the office, what I appreciate is the ability to get up and move around. Just go get a drink, go talk to a colleague, whatever the case may be, moving around. And you have to keep that in mind when you're working from home as well. It's okay to get up and move around a little bit.
So Patrick, I know your specialty or what you focus on before all the crisis was the OSHA or OSHA regulations.
Sure.
Are there things that working remotely or working from home, there are some OSHA regulations or standards or
Not really, not really. OSHA isn't really gonna look into people working from home.
Okay.
And then obviously the big thing for them is the businesses that kept going throughout this whole thing.
Right.
You know, the essential businesses or anybody that could work kind of, you know, social distancing at home or at the office and things like that. So working from home, they have recommendations. If you go to the website, OSHA.gov, they're going to have a lot of guidance there as far as specifics and things like that. But what they really have gotten into is the people that are still working, you know, the big plants, John Deere, things like that, all the different places that have employees still coming in, and what are some ways that they can keep safe. And it's all the things we've all heard about. It's all the social distancing. It's wearing the proper PPE and things like that. And OSHA also understands that it's not easy for people to just implement all this stuff today, you know, or the day it started back in March. So they realize this is an ongoing problem that people are dealing with as we go along. So most companies obviously put into effect, you know, social distancing as much as possible. Sometimes that's not possible. So that's when you go to either the proper PPE, you know, the protective equipment, or even, you know, down to the testing and things like that a lot of companies have started doing with taking temperatures before they come in and things like that. So while working from home, I can talk about being comfortable and sitting and you having your thighs parallel with the ground, your feet on the ground, and, you know, your elbows at a 90-degree angle, all those things that sound like, oh, who's really sitting working like that? But that is obviously the reason we recommend that stuff is it is more comfortable on your back, your shoulders, your legs, all that kind of good stuff. So it keeps your mental health a little more healthy.
Right. So we know that company and office and corporate culture is really, really important. I mean, it's become even more important the last few years when with the employees, the relationships and the connections with employees and with management and that kind of thing. How are you finding that organizations are really reinforcing their company culture while working remotely? Either of you.
Carly, you want to field this one, or should I?
Sure, yeah.
You both can do it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously we have a variety of clients who, you know, kind of have a split workforce where some of them are still on site and some of them are still in the office. And so it's hard to kind of bring everybody together when you've got something like that. And luckily we've got this great virtual community now, which is making that easier. But a lot of ways that the clients I've been working with, we've been working to build that culture is through weekly or even daily engagement activities virtually. So the movement sessions, again, is one. We have employees who are doing things where they'll send out a weekly kind of challenge or activity for people to do. And those can range from things like posting a picture of your at-home office space and kind of seeing everybody's different views and posting pictures of who your new coworkers might be. So like your pets, your spouses who might be at home, your kids, posting different things of like stuff you're missing right now, whether that be sports, you know, restaurants, things like that, and just kind of spurring different ways for people to post pictures of each other and being able to comment and stay engaged with one another, even if it's something simple like posting a joke or, you know, laughing can have a great effect on your mental health. And so a lot of times I'll encourage people to, if they can, find a short little skit of their favorite comedian or somebody like that, and to send it to a coworker or to post it on, you know, your intranet, or if you have a company Facebook page, something like that, to kind of give people a little break and maybe a little laugh to step away from the things that are going on while still being engaged with one another.
Sure.
Awesome. Patrick, you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, in like she's saying, you know, well, what we did specifically at PDCM is we could easily work from home, not easily, I mean, but we transitioned from working at home pretty quickly when this whole thing broke out. I believe it was kind of spring break week when all that kind of was going down. So, and checking in is the big thing. Like Carly said, it's easy to feel isolated when you're working from home, even though you are surrounded by family. My wife works from home all the time anyway, but, you know, she's up in her office, I'm down in the basement, you know, the kids are kind of moving around. So it's easy to lose that connection to your fellow coworkers. So like Carly was saying, checking in, just even if it's just to check in and say, how's it going? You know, like you normally would in an office type setting. You know, we'd walk by, how was your day? How was your night? Not that anybody's doing anything super exciting right now. There's no vacations and trips and things like that going on, but, you know, just checking in, trying to keep tabs on each other just to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page and everybody's feeling the same things, you know. You know, how long is this going to go? How much more can we do? Will this affect me in the long run? All these questions start to bother people. But if you get that connection daily, every other day, whatever the case may be, with fellow coworkers or clients or whatever the case may be, things kind of feel a little more normal.
Right.
From my end, that's what I feel.
Yeah, that's one thing we've talked about internally in our organization and with our businesses that we work with. The connectivity is so important. And where it used to be very casual because you used to work under the same roof most times,
Sure.
people coming and going, but you still would walk by folks all the time. And now it has to be much more intentional and purposeful. And so we used to have a Monday morning huddle every week, and now we have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday huddle. That doesn't last quite as long, but everybody gets on together at 8:30 in the morning. And then if we need more interaction, then you can split off into smaller groups if you need to. But I think just having that very intentional and purposeful time that you're going to see the folks who you're used to seeing on a regular basis, and how important that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say another thing too is kind of going with that in the social aspect and making sure you are keeping in touch with everybody. My division at PDCM, we actually have a daily social call. So we have every day at 4:50. So the last 10 minutes of the day is just our social call where we all jump on to Teams or Zoom, whatever it is, and we talk about anything other than work. So like Patrick said, what, if anything, are you doing this weekend? And I've also heard of some other clients who have been implementing things like virtual coffee breaks.
Right.
At like 1:45, a 15-minute break, they all jump on, and have coffee or tea or water, whatever it is that you want to drink. And they just have kind of a social call. So like Patrick said, being able to have that flexibility with your employees to take a break, to just talk to the people you usually get to talk to who now you haven't seen for weeks.
Right. Could go as far as having a virtual happy hour. I mean, you could still just drink water or coffee, but it could be timed in a little more festive way if you wanted to.
Sure.
Exactly.
I've done for those virtual happy hours with friends where we were doing adult beverages. So
right. I have a niece and nephew in Kansas City, and every day at 5 o'clock they get on with their tribe, and they just kind of wind down and I'll talk about their day and whatever came up. And again, a good opportunity to still stay connected with folks that you want to.
Yeah.
So do either of you have anything else you want to share with the group, knowing that today our topic is working from home and both physical and emotional wellness? Anything else you'd like to share with the group?
Well, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that, while we're all creating these at-home workstations, that just, and comfort is a big deal. We don't have our office desks, our office chair, all the correct office furniture, things like that. We're sitting on a table or we're sitting on the sofa, wherever the case may be. The big thing is to make yourself comfortable. And then remember, while you're working, even if you feel like you're comfortable, to make sure you're moving around, you're breathing, you're blinking, you're taking breaks, things like that. You're making sure you have the right posture. I know it's easy to start slumping forward or moving way back, things like that. So just to adjust to your screen, especially during some of these meetings, don't realize, I'm not sitting very straight. I'm kind of off to one side or the other. So just paying attention to kind of how you're sitting throughout the day, especially if we're not in a traditional office setting on a traditional office chair. So paying attention to that stuff. And then Carly talked about it as well. Just keeping in touch and taking breaks and realizing we're all working through this thing together. I mean, I know a lot of people before this worked from home, but for a majority of us, this is a new experience.
Right.
And we're going on, I think, day 38, 39, 40, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And, with no real end in sight yet. So, we all have to make sure we get through this, whether just physically well-being and also obviously mental well-being as well.
Well, and I think working remotely is getting a lot more respect than it did before.
Sure.
And again, that comes over your culture values of trust and making sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and getting the work done. And that's where the accountability comes in. And I think that, that's a whole nother possible program as far as accountability and workforce goals and that kind of thing. But the truth is, this may be more reality longer than anyone expected. So finding ways to be comfortable and productive and positive are going to be really, really critical. Mm-hmm. So Carly, did you want to add anything?
So I know one thing that I have been talking with my friends a lot that we have all kind of been struggling with is now that we are working from home and there's no longer that physical barrier between our different workspaces, is being able to turn off.
Right.
And, really stepping away and still maintaining that work-life balance, even though now you're living in your work. And so some of the things that I've kind of brainstormed with them as far as how to get over that. We've heard a lot about, keeping a routine. I don't necessarily keep a routine in terms of like doing my hair and makeup because I've enjoyed not having to do those things.
But you did this morning, didn't you?
Yes, I did this morning. But as far as, trying to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time you normally would, so that your body is still maintaining that same circadian rhythm and you're still getting that usual sleep, which can be huge for mental health. And then making sure, my friends seem to really be struggling with the turning off aspect, in sense of, they're still checking emails at 9:00 at night. And so really making sure to try to stick to those normal work hours of 8 to 5. And when that 5 o'clock time hits, checking off. If you get notifications on your phone for email or anything, turning those off at 5 o'clock so that you're not tempted by seeing that little notification sign or anything like that. And then, being with spouses and being with kids and pets, it can create a lot of distractions. And so if possible, I know it's not always possible for everybody, to try to have a separate office space that's not your bedroom or not your living room, so that you don't feel like you're living in your work. If you can have that separate space where you can close the door and have 4 walls where maybe you're not going to see it every single day, that can be huge as far as temptation goes. And then I know, like, my boyfriend and I living in the same house, he's upstairs and I'm downstairs. So we don't really see each other during the day except for maybe lunch. So we still kind of have that same routine of work. That can be very helpful. But, just trying to mimic your work life as much as you can, but also not being afraid to break that routine if you need to. If you feel yourself, maybe you're noticing your mood is, you're more cranky, you're more irritable. Maybe you do need to switch things up and go sit somewhere else in the house, or, make yourself something new for breakfast, whatever it is. But don't be afraid to be flexible in that routine, but still kind of sticking to some of those things that keep you grounded at the same time.
That's interesting. We talked early on in our organization about how the lines get blurred really quickly, really easily between work and home and professional and personal lives. And I was listening to a program about how important it is, for the first couple of weeks when you're working remotely, if you want to wear your pajama bottoms or whatever, go ahead. But after that, after you get through some of the newness of it, making sure, like you said, a routine and a schedule. And Dr. Kim Newman on our program, or on our webinar series last week, said that it's especially important with kids. That there's a schedule. So if it's good for kids, it's good for us too. So making sure that you have that routine, as you said, Carly, and schedule is pretty.
Like you said, with the kids being home, if they have schoolwork to do, or I know a lot of teachers are doing, voluntary sessions, reaching out to your child's teacher and actually having your kid do that, so that maybe they're doing that schoolwork during that 8 to 3 hour when you're working 8 to 5. And so there's less distractions, and trying to keep them entertained with.
Very good. Very good. Well, I think we're gonna wind things down. Do either of you have anything else to say to the group? This has been a not only an interesting but a very necessary topic to talk with our audience about. So, thank you for your expertise and your observations. But you're welcome to share a final comment if you'd like to.
Well, just if anybody has any questions on any of that kind of stuff, just feel free to reach out to Carly or I or anybody really at PDCM. Through our emails or website, whatever the case may be, and be happy to meet further and discuss any questions you have, even if it's not about working from home, like for me specifically, any kind of safety or OSHA related questions, or probably with the wellness stuff too as well. So
I would think that as we go on, possibly longer than anyone expected, the safety and the OSHA and just having a good understanding about it. So, and chances are it hasn't been something many of our businesses have had to deal with, but like you said, those essential workforce, essential infrastructure businesses may have questions about that. So and it's changing all the time.
I'm sure putting out new guidelines all the time, modifying current guidelines, even just temporarily as far as what they're going to do. So everything does keep changing in that area. So certainly if anybody has any questions on that, reach out and we'll get you taken care of.
Good. Carly?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I'm more than willing to provide any other resources that any other people out there might be interested in. But, just so everybody knows you're not alone in the way you're feeling with all of this. I think we're all experiencing the same things and feeling the same way. So
Yeah.
I don't think
Not
anybody.
alone. You're not alone is a really good, we're in this together, as everyone realizes is more important than it sounds, but it's absolutely true. So, well, Carly Miller and Patrick Klein, thank you so much for sharing your professional experience, your personal experience. It's been really, really helpful for all of us. And for those watching, if you're interested in listening to Governor Reynolds, she usually comes on at 11 o'clock in the morning, and you can get on the Governor Kim Reynolds Facebook page to listen to her update at 11. She always has updates and numbers and possibly policies, so you may be interested in that. Otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday at 10:30, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you Tuesday and Thursday each week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.